Hi guys! In a minute you will see the first lesson from Ola of her professional and complex JavaScript course from scratch. But first, allow me to interrupt for a second. Ola is using Visual Studio Code as her code editor, so it would be the best if you would do so as well. In the description you will find a link to my video where I show how to download, install and configure Visual Studio Code to use it on a daily basis. Now the last but the most important thing. This is a complete JavaScript course, so it means that it requires basic HTML and CSS knowledge. If you already know HTML and CSS, you're good to go, but if not, you can learn it from my course of HTML and CSS Basics, which will also be linked in the description of this video. That would be all from me. Have a good time learning JavaScript with Ola.
Hi guys, our first class, Introduction to Theory about JS. And let's start simple. So have a look at the screen. I've created a simple structure for the course. So I've created the Udemy folder, JS course, and inside there I've got my intro folder, and inside there I've got index.html file. You can see here. And this is going to look pretty much the same for most classes in the theory part. And it's pretty simple. So I've got head, and in the body I've got H1 that says JavaScript course. You can see to the right. And H1 is at start because this is our intro. And the last thing, but very important, is that just before the closing body tag, I've added a script tag source that's pointing to main.js. So I've already created my JavaScript file, and this is like the gist of what we're doing here. So we've got this HTML, very simple, that only says two things, but because of that and because we attached our JavaScript file to it, we can work with JavaScript language, right? So I'm just gonna make it smaller and move on to main.js. As you can see, loads of comments here, and we're gonna go through it to get the basics right. It's not a lot, and do not be afraid. And all those I'm going to be sharing with you. If you want to have a look afterwards, read through the notes or make your own comments, this is all going to be made available to you in the course. So adding to the HTML file, we have to use the script tag. src stands for the source, and we need to know the path. It's usually not in the same file, but for our needs and our purposes, it's okay if it's in the same file. And we gotta know the path. If it's in the same file, it's okay to just put main.js. Or you could name it anything you want. You could name it file.js or index.js, anything that you feel like is a more suitable name. Main.js is it's neat and it's tidy and it makes sense to me, at least. And that one thing that we need to remember about is that it should be preferably right before the closing body tag. And why is that? It's because at this point the program is read from top to the bottom, so the page is going to be already rendered. So all the elements are going to be already on the screen in the window. And if we want to work with any of those elements later on, they are already going to be available to us. So that's why it's important to put the script for the JS file at the very end, so that everything else is already on the page. Just gonna click on the elements here, and you can see that we've got head, we've got body, and nothing surprising. We've got H1 this is JavaScript course, and H2 that says start, and our script. So everything that we put on here, it represented on here with those objects. About objects, we're going to talk a lot, and it's going to become like something you're going to think about a lot. And at some point, you're going to feel like it's pretty simple, but later on, we're going to move on to some very advanced topics. And later on in your career, you're going to get to the point where you will feel like you again don't understand objects. Because it's actually, it can be very complex. It can be very complicated. Right, but this is of less importance than our console. Console is of the utmost importance to us for this course, and especially now in the theory course. So please do remember the script tag right before the end of the body tag. Display the content specified in parentheses in the console browser if the code is run in the browser. So, the first thing to check is that we already have the index HTML file. We want to make sure that the JS file is attached correctly. So to do that, we can, for instance, use this instruction here. Got console.log and it says OK. If I'm going to refresh, it should print to the screen text OK. This way we know that the file has been attached correctly. And what's that? Console is this console here. So for instance, this is an object. The most important object in the browser is the window, and it's got like loads of built-in methods. One smaller object, so-called smaller, I'm gonna dare say smaller, got console, and console also has like built-in methods. One of those built-in methods is log. So it's already like implemented, and you don't need to write your own method and say and describe it, what it has to do. It's already there and it's available for you to use. So got console dot. Do not worry if it's like a bit too much for you to follow up. We're gonna go into a lot more detail later on, but for now it's just for you to be able to use it and start playing with your program. So go dot, and this allows us to go inside like the console and search for all the methods that are available to us. Log is one of those available built-in methods that are already implemented. And if I put something inside here, it's going to be printed out into the console. So we can see any text, anything I want to say here. If I will say 2 + 2, it should print out 4, right? So it does what we want, not less, not more. So this is like the first thing that many people will do with their program and feel like they have so much control over what is happening up there, when right before it was just like pure magic. It's not magic, we do it. You're responsible for what's happening on there. Instruction. Instruction is like the smallest part of the program. Examples of simple instructions, we'll cover them later in the course. Of course, we will cover everything later in the course, but for now, simple examples for you to be introduced to this beautiful language. So I'm gonna uncomment this. Got 2 + 2, and let's put here start, save it. So now it's only printing out start to the screen, and it's not printing 2 plus 2. Do you wonder why? Because it's been almost the same as in here, and now it's not printing 4 to the screen. And it's no wonder, because it's no magic. Here we gave it an instruction. We said, look, man, I want to log that word in the console. Here I'm just saying, take what's on the left hand side and use your special power to add what's on the right hand side. In this case, it's an addition operator, so it's like a simple plus. So the program already compiled and it knows it's 4, but it's not going to print anything to the screen because we never said print it to the screen. So it's like an instruction that it's done, but it's nothing more. We have to specify exactly what we expect of the program. So if I'm comment this part and it says console log and it's in parentheses specifying what I want to log in the console, what I wanted to print to the screen, it should show 4. So I've got console log start. This is going to be executed but not shown anywhere, and this is going to be console logged again because that's what I wanted for the program to do, for the program to perform, and displaying the result of the expression in the console. One other surprising thing for the newbies can be that thing. Now that I've put 2's in quotation marks, it's no longer a number. Now this is a string, so it acts like a text, and this plus here is going to be simple concatenation. So let's save it, and it's no longer 4 because we're just adding 2 plus 2 but as a text. So it would make more sense if you could see A and B. Oh yeah, these are 2 words, characters, so it's putting it together. But the program will behave differently depending on the type of the thing that we are introducing. So just bear in mind, you don't need to remember not any of it. I would like you to remember some of it, but no pressure. It's just like, let's go simple and let's go slow. So this is an instruction. This is an instruction that doesn't show, but it is executed. This is also an instruction. And this is also an instruction. So here with the keyword let, I'm creating a variable result and giving it a value of 2 plus 2. So instruction, this is an instruction to declare a variable and initialize it with a value. And again, this is going to be executed, and 2 plus 2 as a value of 4 is going to be assigned to that variable, but it's not going to be printed anywhere. But this is also a instruction. So let's move on. Another thing, this is going to be also an instruction. So this 2 uppercase with the parentheses, this is a method and it's called on this value in here on the left hand side. And again, because I'm not trying to console log anything into the console, you can't see it. But if I will copy, paste that into the console, it's gonna print out text using the capital letters. So exactly what I'm asking it to do. So again, bear in mind, the program, very clever, but won't do anything apart from what we specify on here. Initializing a variable and creating an array, this is how you create an empty array. Well, this is an information for you. I already know that. So again, this is gonna be another sort of instruction. And I understand this might be a bit difficult for you to understand for now. This is gonna be an array. That's how you let the program know that you want to create an array. And we're gonna learn about arrays later on. And for now, just for you eyes to get used to it. This is also an instruction. And we're gonna learn about all of it later on. So don't be in a rush. Just let it soak in. An instruction may or may not return something. So, for instance, if I'll create a variable result 2 and I'm just going to create it and press enter, my console is going to print out undefined. And many people at the very beginning will wonder, what have I done wrong? Because undefined, so it's kind of like something must have gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. This is just because there's no return value. So you've created that variable using a keyword let, and let's say result 2 equals, let's put puppy. So now I've given it a value of puppy and it exists. Undefined, nothing wrong is happening here. It's just for you to bear in mind that this may show a lot and nothing wrong is happening. So if I create a result 3, even though it's a bad practice to name your variables with names that do not mean anything, but for now you don't need to know that yet, so let's stick to it just for the purposes of this. So I'm gonna give it a value of birdie, right? And hit enter. It's gonna return undefined, even though it's got a value assigned to it right away. And if I refer to it again, it is safely stored in that variable. So it's only because it doesn't return a value. So for instance, 2 plus 2, so the sort of instruction that will give you something in return right away. Right, so it's printing out for straight away and not undefined because there is a return value. What's next? Instruction may or may not return something, as you could see in here, or instruction is a task, a single program element, and instruction makes sense as long as it in some way has impact on the program. So for instance, this 2 plus 2 has been executed once and it's given you the return value of 4, but it doesn't do anything. It's this information, this data is not stored anywhere in the program. So it doesn't actually impact the program in any way. But again, later on, when you are a developer, you might need it. There might be situations when you need it to not be stored anywhere, but mostly it makes sense if it's actually this data is used for something else and not just once run. The code has been run once and it's finished its existence. Next thing, the semicolon ends the statement. Right, so you may, but you don't have to use the semicolons to end the statement because the interpreter will add it for you. So if I've forgotten to put it in here and on here, it's like, it's gonna be added for me, but, right. So nothing wrong is happening. It's still there. It's just our code looks, it doesn't look good, does it? It's just for the aesthetic purposes. It's best to always add the semicolon, so to keep it clean and nice and tidy and beautiful to read. It's good to take care of these aesthetic part, even though from like the practical point of view, you don't have to because it's gonna work anyway. Despite everything, it's better to add a semicolon. Right, because sometimes if we set up some like a beautify additional plugin or like many different situations when linter is gonna work and it's just gonna work the opposite way rather than the add semicolon, okay, it could move the line to the top because it's gonna feel like this is not the end of the program, and it's gonna throw an error. So from the practical point of view, it's also better to use semicolons. Instructions are executed from top to bottom. This is how the interpreter reads the program. So, once again, kind of like a human, we go from top to bottom when we read a book, from left-hand side to the right-hand side, although not everywhere in the entire world, that's the way. But let's say most common in the European countries for sure. So we go from the top to the bottom. Other thing, when you name your variables, use a camel case notation. So for instance, do not say, it's not your notebook that you could say my name is, this is gonna throw an error. It's already like underlined and highlighted. Something is expected because the program cannot read that. This is wrong. And the most popular one is the camel case. We could also use underscore, like my name and your name as a string. But most commonly, I think we should stick to the camel case. Camel notation example and method. So even those methods that are already built in, so somebody smarter than us created this program, thought the best way to name methods that have more than one word is to use camel case. So I think it's best to actually stick to this practice. Let's paste it in the console, see what it does. It turns the word something to all capital letters. We're gonna talk about those methods later on. Again and again and again, you're gonna be bored. For now, it's just for your eyes to get used to it and like kind of remember the keywords. So camel case. When I'm naming my variable, use camel case. And what's next? Comments. So as you can see that I've used so many comments here. I can comment something and I can uncomment it, and everything that you can see that is green in here is ignored by the interpreter. So it's like something for you, and you should write them because tomorrow or the next day it's like your personal notes for you or for someone else who's going to work with your code. And you will not remember. You think you're gonna remember, but you will not. it's often the case that you think, okay, I'm gonna put that thing somewhere safe for safekeeping, and later on you can find everything else, but that, I don't know, money you so safely stored, or that credit card, or like something that you thought you put in a very important place and then you forgot. So the same goes with your code. You had an idea, you put it down, and then you're coming back to it like a month later and you have absolutely no idea why you've done it the way you've done it, and you definitely had a purpose in it, in that action. So happens to the best of us. So please write comments. Self-explanatory code. What's even better than the comment is code that is so good to read that is like reading a comment. So it explains itself. So in that case, no comment is necessary, but as I mentioned before, weird things happen to the best of us. No shame. So for instance, if you create a user ID, don't just put blah blah or like, I don't know, X, because you won't remember, and someone who's going to read that code later on, this person has no idea. If you put nicely user ID, everything is clear. People will know because it says user ID. Or if you create a function, update score, it does something. In this case, it's empty because we're not so forward yet. But then don't just say update as. If you put something like this, it doesn't make much sense. It's like, it could make some sense for like in the moment, but then you're gonna forget. So put, even if it sounds like too silly or too tedious at this point, it makes sense later on to put the name is actually like meaningful, and we got last login. Again, self-explanatory. You know exactly what it means. It means the date of the last login. Or function add user to the course. Don't add user. You know that you want to, it means that you wanted to add another user to the course, and so the function should state the obvious, but it's not obvious if you don't have that name. So meaningful names instead of comments. Example of names that are inappropriate because they are too general. So for instance, item. Item can mean anything. Meaning, we're missing a semicolon here. Or a function, add. What are we adding in here? Well, you thought you were gonna remember, but now your code has thousands of lines and you don't know. Because you didn't listen. It has to be meaningful. So add a user to the course and it already makes sense. We comment on the code for testing purposes. So like for instance in here, when I wanted to check if my file is correctly attached to the index.html, I can then comment it out and lose it because I no longer need it. But it's like when you work, there's lots of different things that you may want to console log and see if it's like, we'll get to it. But for now, just remember that it's also useful to kind of like for the purposes of your own like commenting or uncommenting, that not necessarily you wanted it to be in the code forever, but when you write something, it's useful to see what properties has a given method, or you'll see. We'll learn about this later on. And single line comment or a multi-line comment. So control or command and slash. So if you are a Mac user like myself, then it's going to be a command on the keyboard, but if not, look for control and slash. And it's used to both comment and uncomment. Multi-line, slightly different. So if we wanted to put text, texty, flexi, blah, and then have it commented, you could also go command and slash. If you want to take one line commented, command and slash. But you could also go Option Shift A, and it's gonna take it all together with a nice slash and a stir. And it's also a good practice that if there is a multi-line comment, it's probably best to stick to those. Alt Shift A or Option Shift A. Great. So that's it for our introduction. And in a second, we're gonna move to data types. Good luck.
Thanks for today. In the next lesson, Ola will show you data types in JavaScript. So stay tuned and see you next Wednesday.